Guitar. Oh, yeah. We got ourselves a plastic pink guitar. I blew it up 5 minutes before we went live here. I feel like I now have cancer from blowing that thing up. Oh, God. I'll never get that taste out of my mouth. What is that? Ugh. Ugh. Oh, all right. Tastes like toxic waste. Okay. The Waiver Wired show is, we're off and running. And as the wind at our sails, wind at our back, our sails are at full mast or whatever sails are coming off the plays of the week where we finally hit on all the receivers. Hutchinson, Troy Franklin. Oh my God, Troy Franklin. Thank you very much, everybody streaming, playing Troy Franklin, Xavier Hutchinson. It worked out really well. Fantasy football doesn't have to be hard. Do you love the matchup? Or is this guy technically the number one receiver on the depth chart? You don't have to overthink it in fantasy football. So we're going to build on the not overthinking it with this edition of Waiver Wired. Overall, this is a good week to spend some money. I know you might be surprised to hear me say that. It's been a while since I have said it, but I think this is a nice week to spend some money. Why is that? Because we had a bunch of injuries to frontline running backs. Judkins, Kamara, Barkley, picking up minor injuries or injuries that might be more severe than they're being reported, like a Barkley or like a Judkins. We will see. Of course, we had the season-ending injury to Cam Skattebo, which we should talk about first. If Tyrone Tracy is available in your league, you should be picking him up. He did dip below, just in time for this Cam Skattebo injury, he dipped below the 50% rostered threshold on Yahoo. So in a lot of shallow leagues, he actually is available. I would just go ahead and put down 90%. He's an all-purpose back who is easily the primary option for his team. And if you are the primary option and you have an all-purpose skill set, I'm going to say 90%, especially now that the Giants are dangerous. Any given week, they can put up points with Jackson Dart under center. It's interesting that there's now some upside in this Giants offense. Even more reason to go all in on Tyrone Tracy in a shallow league if he is available. Now, we've talked about Tyrone Tracy. All right, you want him. Who is number two? That is up for debate. I've seen a lot of arguments on Twitter, on podcasts, and articles. There are lots of different directions that you could go with the number two pickup this week. I am not going to go in the direction you think I'm going to go. I know you might think, oh, well, he's going to say Isaiah Davis. He's going to say Jaden Blue. No. In fact, the next two players we're going to talk about are not players that I love. They're not players that are my type of upside play. But the scenario has played out just right that you have to prioritize Bam Knight. You have to prioritize Bam Knight. They're going to play Dallas this week. Michael Carter was released, then he's going to be picked back up, reportedly. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe there was a misclick by the front office in Arizona. We don't know what happened. All we do know is that in the last game Arizona played, Bam Knight dominated the touches. He was even more active in the passing game than Michael Carter. This was a surprise to me. I thought Michael Carter was actually going to ride it out until the return of Trey Benson as the primary back. That is not how it worked out. They have now a less versatile running back in the number one running back chair, but they are playing Dallas, and he is going to get like a 60+% opportunity share. So you just have to go pick up Bam Knight. In a shallow league, I would go as high as 2%. In deep leagues, I'd go as high as 8%. Because we're coming off a bye, it's possible that Bam Knight is still available, even in a shallow league. It's possible, and not going to be anyone running out to pick that. That's what I love about players that are available coming off of buys, they tend to get moved down the board. They tend to be forgotten about because, they weren't picked up. But then the catch-22 of this is that you don't really want to pick these guys up before the bye, because then you have to stash a player with no upside in the upcoming week. So there's no injury that can happen in front of that player on the depth chart and help propel them. So it's just a pure dead roster spot for a week. So no one really wants to take that dead roster spot. And then once that week is over, suddenly that player is out of sight, out of mind. And I think that's what's happening with Bam Knight, where I haven't seen him prioritized like he should be heading into this Dallas game. I think this time of year, you have to win in order to make the playoffs. So unless you're a team that's already well secure in your playoff contention, if you're undefeated or you have a one loss and you have a commanding lead or whatever it is. Okay, if you have a commanding lead and you have the bye secured, then fine. Okay, maybe you could take a shot down the board at a guy with more upside. But for most teams trying to win now, we're trying to secure a division championship, a bye week, whatever it is, and first and foremost, a playoff spot in fantasy football. And we only have now, you look at the calendar, we have 5 to 6 weeks before the playoffs. Like it is coming up. We're past the halfway point of the fantasy regular season. So if you need a win and a running back is playing Dallas in a starting primary back role this week, you need to go and bid that player up. And you can go above 8% if you're desperate for a win. I say go above 8%. Do what you need to do to get Bam Knight. Tank Bigsby is also interesting. Tank Bigsby is not, again, he's a Bam Knight. I mean, what's the difference? Right? He is Bam Knight 2.0. That's what he is. Right? Is anyone that excited about Tank Bigsby? No. The Jacksonville Jaguars got a good look at Tank Bigsby for years, and were they excited about him? No. They let him go to Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia also has a bye, so you are absolutely just eating a dead roster spot for a week. But this is a groin injury. And this is a player in Saquon Barkley who's well past the age apex. They come back slower from injuries, and he's had groin injuries in the past. So for a bunch of reasons, you need to prioritize Tank Bigsby. If this were a different team, I would not be this excited. To stash a guy through a bye week on a bad team, especially a running back, no thank you. I'm not doing that. But this is the Eagles. This is the Eagles offense we're talking about. And Tank Bigsby comes on in relief, and he put up over 100 yards. So this is what he's capable of on Philadelphia. You need to, I hate saying it, Bam Knight, Tank Bigsby, and these are cool football names. I love these names, Tank and Bam. But I would go Tank Bigsby after a 100-yard game. Even in shallow leagues, you had to go 3-4%, maybe 5%. In deep leagues, Tank Bigsby is going to command like a 20% bid. Oh, yeah. If you want Tank Bigsby with that kind of upside, with an unknown injury designation the following week for Saquon Barkley, you're going to have to pay up. But fortunately, I think what you're going to do is you're going to stagger your bids so that Bam Knight is prioritized over Tank Bigsby, and you won't end up with Tank Bigsby. I think I'm seeing a lot of people prioritizing Tank Bigsby after Tyrone Tracy. Not doing it. I'm not doing it. As much as I think this is a smart move, though he is one-dimensional, Saquon Barkley nursing a groin injury is just like, if I say it out loud, when I say it out loud, you're like, oh my God, I got to get Tank Bigsby. Now, what will end up happening is, let's say you're trying to make 2 or 3 transactions. You might end up with Bam Knight. Great. You can play him. And then the next player you'll probably end up with is Jaden Blue. Because Blue commanded a season-high rush share on Sunday, but he only scored 2 fantasy points. This is exactly, this is great. This is what we want. This is the perfect situation where You have a player's role growing, but it's not paired with the corresponding growth in fantasy point production and output. This is the high-scoring offense of the NFL. This is a guaranteed shootout every week. This is the clear handcuff back who has some marginal standalone value on the most dynamic, prolific offense in the league. This is what upside is all about. Just run the thought experiment. Javonte Williams gets hurt. What will the winning bid look like on Jaden Blue in your league? It's going to be extreme. It's going to be like 100%. It's going to be at a place where a lot of people can't even afford to bid on him. That's how high it's going to be. And so there's no reason not to just go in on that guy. And that's the guy you want. Now, the beauty is, because he didn't score anything and he's still a rookie and he's off everybody's radar, you can get him at a fraction of what you can get a Tank Bigsby in free agency. That is the beauty of it. This is what we do every week. I feel like every week we do this exercise where it's like, okay, everybody, where is the attention being paid by all the fantasy analysts? Who are they focused on? Okay, they love Tank Bigsby. They love Dylan Sampson, because these are the two running backs in Barkley and Judkins that sustained the most serious injuries other than Cam Scatterbo, of course, and that's why everyone has Tyrone Tracy in the number one position, which means he's not that interesting. It's not like you're learning anything. Oh, you should get Tyrone Tracy. Oh, really? Thank you. But yeah, you're going to see Tank Bigsby a notch or two down the board from where you might see him otherwise. And then Dylan Sampson, stand by. Stand by for when you get to hear Dylan Sampson's name read. We're going to talk about Jaden Blue before we talk about Dylan Sampson. Who else has more upside than Dylan Sampson? Isaiah Davis. Isaiah Davis delivered, but Breece Hall came out of that game unscathed, and they're heading into a bye. So all of you that will have picked up Isaiah Davis already have Isaiah Davis. It's not like there's someone out there that's going, oh my God, Isaiah Davis? Tell me more. This is some people new to the show. Hello. Anyway, if he's available, scoop him. Even though Hall had massive output in Week 8, it was incredible. Those of us that drafted Breece Hall, thank God we got something, got a spike week out of it. And Davis put up points. It was amazing. Breece Hall could still be traded. And Breece Hall, if he's not traded, what is his desire to play going to look like? I think he wants to get paid, so I think he's going to be running like a man possessed for the rest of the season. That could also get him hurt. There's all kinds of scenarios where Isaiah Davis becomes the bell cow back in New York, and we already got a preview of what it's going to look like as he rotated in, and it was nice. Isaiah Davis is a quality all-purpose back. Doesn't do anything exceptional. He's very strong between the tackles runner. Everything else, he is just adequate, very similar to his best comparable player on Player Profiler, Tyler Algier. After Isaiah Davis, my priority is Devin Neal. Now, Isaiah Davis, he gave you, close to 15 fantasy points in that 15 fantasy points zone last week. So it's going to take just a little bit more than a nibble in deep leagues to get Isaiah Davis. However, in deep leagues, Devin Neal is going to be available. Even though Kamara was also banged up in Week 8, it wasn't widely reported that it was serious. Kamara less likely to be traded. And most importantly to me, Devin Neal is on the Saints. So Devin Neal and Dylan Sampson have a similar problem in that if they are elevated, then what? Congratulations, you're on the Saints. Congratulations, you're on the Browns. And Devin Neal will then have a Taysom Hill problem that we'll talk about. So that's why I don't have Devin Neal in the top 5, and I don't have Dylan Sampson in the top 5. But I think Devin Neal is very interesting. I think he's an all-purpose back, and there's less competition there than there is even in Cleveland, as long as Jerome Ford is in Cleveland. So I like Devin Neal. I think 3% should do it in a deep league. If not 1 or 2%, you know your league mates, act accordingly. Then my next priority, I think priority 7 on the waiver wire, is Sean Tucker. And again, all of this is on Patreon, patreon.com/podfather. Support us. You support all the free shows that we don't have shows behind paywalls. We don't do that. And the other thing is, we run like one set of ads, unless it's a longer show. Listen to the ads. Don't fast forward. Listen to them. We actually, we earn more when you listen to them. So it helps us when you listen to the ads, actually. If you can't join us on Patreon, then maybe listen to the ads. And then we'll keep going. We're going to keep going. I don't know what year this is with the waiver wire, but we've been at it a while. If you're on YouTube, if you're on any of these Facebook streaming platforms, like the show. Put a comment on it. Who do you think I messed up? I'm sure if I'm going to list 10 running backs in priority order, there's one guy that you disagree with. So let us know in the comments. We'll see where the biggest disagreement is. Because after Devin Neal, Devin Neal has explosiveness. Devin Neal is an all-purpose back. And there's a little more going on, even with Tyler Shuck at quarterback in New Orleans. There's a little more point scoring potential than there is in, say, Cleveland. There's also just a better environment to play football and score points, especially in the winter in New Orleans than there is in Cleveland. And if you want to go even further south, I would say Sean Tucker. Now, Sean Tucker is technically the number 3 running back on the depth chart because Bucky Irving is due back any week. I get all that. But we also just experienced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers realizing, apparently for the first time, I can't believe it took this long, but I know they realize now. They didn't know before, they know now. Sean Tucker is a better runner of the football than Rachaad White. As much as I love Rachaad White, I love him for all the right reasons. He's not great between the tackles as a tackle avoider. If you want to evade a tackle, any given tackle, Rachaad White's not that great at it. He's not going to break a lot of tackles. He's not going to get around a lot of tackles. Like, he can get to the edge very quickly. He can outrun you. That's about it. He is more of a receiver than a running back. I finally come to terms with this, and this is great. He's going to be a value in fantasy football for years to come. All these running backs that have wide receiver backgrounds, they're almost always great values year in, year out. Rookie this year, Woody Marks, has a wide receiver background. And where is he? Oh, he's putting up fantasy points. Everybody wishes they had already picked him up. Sean Tucker is interesting in that he was viewed coming out of college as very raw, and he fell out of the draft. It's kind of hard to believe that a guy, you look at his stats on playerprofiler.com, the workout metrics in particular, it's just hard to believe. This guy that runs a 4.44, put up huge numbers at Syracuse, is also super strong. He benched 225 pounds 28 times, Sean Tucker. And yet there was something about his football skills, his football ability, that made him the Chase Brown of Syracuse, right? So we had the orange Big Ten team in Illinois producing Chase Brown, a mega producer athlete that was not refined and needed seasoning at the NFL level. And the orange Syracuse team had someone similar with a similar age. And now you could argue these two players have, similar standalone upside if they were given the starting role. Baker Mayfield, he just keeps getting better and better and better, where he's not quite Joe Burrow, but this Tampa Bay offense is an offense you want exposure to, just like last year and now this year with Joe Flacco. The Cincinnati Bengals is an offense you want exposure to. So typically, most people wouldn't have Sean Tucker rated this highly. But we've seen this before. We've seen it where multiple running backs get hurt, or one running back comes back, has a setback with an injury, and then suddenly the team has decided, no, we're going to redeploy this backfield. And it's very possible that Bucky Irving has a setback. A lot of running backs do. And that if he misses time in the second half of the season, the Buccaneers have realized, okay, we're actually going to play Sean Tucker and give him 60% of the running back touches, and we're going to use Rachaad White more in motion, more as a joker type player, because we need him. We're desperate for pass catchers. So many of our receivers have been hurt, right? Now we're in a world where three of the top 4 receivers in Tampa are getting hurt. Well, can't 2 of their top 3 running backs get hurt? If that happens, either Tampa has realized Sean Tucker is better between the tackles and better as just a primary back than Rachaad White, or Rachaad White picks up an injury. And then we also have, the unknown right now that is Bucky Irving. Just have to run the thought experiment. What is the upside of Sean Tucker in a starting role in Tampa? What is the upside of a Jaden Blue in a starting role in Dallas? Well, the answer is it's enormous. It's what could help you win a league. That's why I have Sean Tucker ranked ahead of Dylan Sampson. I mean, this is one of those things where I started this list with Dylan Sampson at 3. And then I just started moving him down and moving him down, moving him down, moving him down, moving him down, moving him down. I like Dylan Sampson. I'm not saying Dylan Sampson's bad. I love Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson was the SEC leader in rushing yards. Dylan Sampson has been electric in the passing game. He's had games already this year as a rookie where he's commanded 8 targets. Best comparable to Tajay Spears in a good way. He's like Tajay Spears with pristine knees. Who doesn't like Dylan Sampson? And now Quinshon Judkins has what could be a relatively serious shoulder injury. This is what you want. This is what you want in a bench running back in fantasy football. But what you don't want is the ultimate upside to be, okay, Judkins is hurt. Jerome Ford has to get traded also. And somehow, some way, this Cleveland offense has to find a way to get functional. That's not going to happen. Okay, first of all, we don't know the seriousness of the Judkins injury. Second of all, Jerome Ford is still there, and Jerome Ford would be a specialist in that backfield, most likely early downs, where Dylan Sampson would be more of a satellite back, third down specialist if Judkins misses time. All right, so what are we even talking about here? And to make it even worse, now I know Sean Tucker has a bye, right? And coming out of the bye, everyone's expecting Bucky Irving to be fully healthy and ready to go, and that's probably going to happen. He still has incredible upside as a stash player. Well, Cleveland has a bye too. And so does Philadelphia. And so do the Jets. Everyone we like has a bye, except Bam Knight. Which is why I have him at number 2. I'm going to sit through a bye week, hoping Jerome Ford gets traded, and then what? Oh, you have maybe the starting running back on Cleveland for one game in Dylan Sampson. That's why I'm like, no, thank you. I mean, not I would never. Yes, if I can't get Sean Tucker and I can't get Devin Neal, then okay. But most likely, going to get Bam Knight, going to get Jaden Blue, going to get Sean Tucker this week. Those are the pickups that I am realistically looking at and hoping will process in my favor, and I believe they will. There are some other options. Kyle Monangai. This is another example of a player with limited upside, but for a different reason. The team is right. It's the team you want. But Kyle Monangai is just a slug. Like, he is a hard runner. but he doesn't even have Bam Knight level dynamism. So what are we talking about? What is the upside there? There's not going to be like Kyle Monangai in a featured back role. No, he could fall forward into the end zone for some touchdowns. That's very possible. But DeAndre Swift is not out. DeAndre Swift is managing this groin injury, but he's weeks along in managing that groin injury, and eventually he'll be taken off the injury report altogether, and we'll go back to not thinking about Kyle Monangai. Jerome Ford is interesting in that if he does get traded, well, he could go somewhere that really needs a running back, and you look up and like, oh, wow, Jerome Ford suddenly is a guy you're starting every week. This could happen. I mean, what if the Eagles assess Barkley over the bye week and decide, we're not satisfied with Tank Bigsby and Will Shipley behind Barkley. We need to add one more running back. We're going to go get Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford would immediately be much more valuable instantly than Tank Bigsby. Jerome Ford has the size that Tank Bigsby brings to the table. He has everything that Tank Bigsby brings to the table, except that he can catch passes. So it would be a much stronger ad for a fantasy team if somehow, some way, the Eagles traded for Jerome Ford. There is a lot of other options. I mean, the Patriots, the Patriots lost Antonio Gibson. Why aren't they in the market for Jerome Ford? You could even see the Panthers. The Panthers have won some games. They might say, hey, okay, Chuba Hubbard keeps getting hurt. We need to plan for the inevitable of potentially Rico Dottle not being 100%. If he keeps up like a massive workload, if Hubbard doesn't play, and then we need someone behind him. There's all kinds of scenarios in teams where I can't believe that no one has traded for Jerome Ford yet. Jerome Ford is the most obvious, even more obvious than Breece Hall. Breece Hall is a little more diva. He's a little more, I need to get paid. He's a little more in your face with this whole trade me. I want to hit free agency running. I get it. Like, it's cool to watch him running like he's out of his mind. I love that. It's cool. But if I were an NFL GM, I would be looking to get a better deal on a Jerome Ford and get 90% of what you're getting, if not more, with Breece Hall. Other stashes that I think are fun and are interesting. Trey Benson, if he's available. Tyler Algier, if you're in a shallow league, just check and make sure that Algier might get dropped. You never know. If you always have to be on alert. Like, set up some kind of alert system where if Algier gets dropped in my league because Atlanta got blown out in a game, you're going to scoop him up. Trey Benson, probably on someone's IR. The guy that really needs to be picked up and stashed is Brian Robinson, because we're now trending toward Christian McCaffrey playing 17 games. Is that going to happen? Is it? I would still be surprised. Would you be surprised if Christian McCaffrey played 17 games? I would be surprised. If you feel like it would be surprising for Christian McCaffrey to play 17 games, then you really only have one move. It's go pick up Brian Robinson. You don't have to bid on him. You can just scoop him up once waivers run, get him on your bench, and never drop him. Because if Christian McCaffrey misses a game at this point, given the calendar, it's like a 40% chance that the game or games that McCaffrey misses are going to be in the fantasy playoffs, and the 49ers will be as healthy as they've ever been as a team, with the exception of McCaffrey, if he were to miss in, say, week 16. All of this points to Brian Robinson in a Kyle Shanahan stretch zone scheme. Brian Robinson is not my first choice. Brian Robinson would not be my 20th choice to thrive in that system. I would much rather have a Breece Hall or a Jerome Ford, but that's not what we have. Right now, what we have is Brian Robinson secure in that RB2 spot in San Francisco. And if we're running thought experiments and thinking about upside, then you need to be thinking about scooping and stashing Brian Robinson now. Whew. It's a fun running back position right now. Running back finally got interesting in week 9. We will talk about wide receivers after this. So let's put our hoodie on and let's talk about Player Profiler's DFS Dominator. It has a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Billy and Bradley and Evan and that Player Profiler AI engine to create cash game lineups that certainly have a high floor, but also give you that ceiling. Now, you've probably heard about the most powerful tool of all, our Lineup Genius. We know winning GPPs requires a completely different approach, which is why our Lineup Genius takes you through the process of selecting the quarterbacks in the juiciest matchups. Then it highlights the stacks and runbacks that are available, lets you pick the chalk level, lets you pick the level of correlation with a number of other proprietary settings available to you. Click a button and it generates hundreds of lineups to be imported into FanDuel and DraftKings. And it's just $45 a year, not a week, a year. So go fight fire with a Player Profiler DFS Dominator. Question in the chat, don't the Eagles have A.J. Dillon? Yeah. And as much as I don't respect Tank Bigsby's fantasy upside, we would all agree he has more upside than A.J. fucking Dillon. Okay? And what have you done for me lately? Oh, Tank Bigsby put up 100 yards. So Tank Bigsby had an audition to be the RB2 in Philadelphia, and he won the job. We all saw it. It's happened. It's over for A.J. Dillon. It's a wrap. I can't believe a guy with 100th percentile size-adjusted athleticism at the running back position, an athleticism-centric position, flamed out as spectacularly as A.J. Dillon did. But that happened. I mean, you haven't seen a flame out like that since Andre Williams. And the connection between Andre Williams and A.J. Dillon is that they both went to Boston College. So whatever Boston College is doing is bad for running backs. The instruction that Boston College coaches are giving running backs is setting them up for failure at the NFL level. I don't know what they're doing in Boston College, but they're doing it wrong at running back. At wide receiver, this is amazing. I'm so giddy. Here we go. I can't believe it. Troy Franklin again. You look up at where he's being rostered at what percentage across fantasy football, and you just can't believe it. You're like 18%, 12% in these leagues. You're like, what? Why? Like, you have to understand, that means that a lot of leagues, you click on free agents, and he is sorted at the top player. This is not last week. This is the week before that, the week before that. The guy, all he's been doing is putting up fantasy points. I mean, it's crazy. He's like the new Chris Carter. All he does is score, and no one picks him up. And every week we have him at like 1 or 2 on the list of receivers to pick up in fantasy football. And then there he is. And then also in the plays of the week. Like, oh, I don't know. Dallas? I don't know. What do you want? What do you want? So now it's like in a deep league, if he's still available, at this point, you got to put like 10% and you might not even get him. But fortunately, we already have him. Then there's Christian Watson. Christian Watson, hey, comes back from the ACL tear. And you do know that Christian Watson is going to pull a hamstring either this week or next week. That is going to happen. He is pushing it very hard coming off an ACL tear. And this is what always happens to guys coming off ACL tears that push it. They end up tearing their hamstring. Whether it's grade 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. That is going to happen. You can set your watch by it. I'm not running out to best case scenario on Christian Watson. This is still not an offense that has the ability to consolidate their targets for whatever reason, because they don't have a receiver, whether it's Golden or Watson or Reed or Dobbs. They don't have an alpha receiver that deserves to have the targets consolidated around them. They don't have a Jackson Smith and Jigba. Even if they had the system in place where they are playing multiple tight ends, or they're playing an H-back or a fullback at a higher rate, and it makes it easier to consolidate the targets, there's no one there. And Christian Watson is not a high target earning receiver. He is a volatile outside playmaker, like a bigger, faster, better version of Alec Pierce. I believe they were at the Senior Bowl together, and they had a similar Senior Bowl, except that Alec Pierce left early, and that's why Christian Watson's a little bit better than him. Christian Watson will always be just a bigger, better, slightly more spike week delivering version of Alec Pierce. I mean, that is exactly what he is. Just as it, the spike week rate, a little higher, a little bit taller, a little bit more athletic, a little bit more explosive, but that's what he is. You're going to lean into the volatility if you agree to go pick up Christian Watson, but given that he played well, was efficient coming off an ACL tear, and there's just not a lot of talent in that wide receiver room, you're going to have to go up to like 8% in FAAB bidding to get him in deep leagues. You can do that, sure. I think fine, but I wouldn't go higher, and you're probably not going to get him. Shallow leagues, I would go to 3%, and that's it. There you might get him, but are you ever going to play him in a shallow league? Probably not. A much better deal is a guy like Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker is also super explosive. Trey Tucker runs a 4.4. Trey Tucker also is best comparable to Mecole Hardman, but in a good way. Like, he is a spike week specialist. That's what he's done this year in Las Vegas. He's either done nothing or 20 plus fantasy points. He has that in his range of outcomes. He's 5'9", but he's 190. He's built incredibly explosively in the lower body, and that's what you want. It's a great stretch Z physique, athletic profile, everything. Right? He wasn't necessarily super dominant, even at Cincinnati. He wasn't a big-time producer, but he's a stretch Z player. These are the quintessential, super volatile, Alec Pierce, spike week type players. It's just that Trey Tucker's in a situation where there's been a bunch of injuries in Las Vegas to their best receivers in Bowers and Myers, and week in, week out, when they're down receivers, it's Trey Tucker that has stepped up. And then so you're like, okay, well, this is interesting. Let's see who are they playing? Well, they face Jacksonville this week, and in a couple more weeks they face Dallas. So looking ahead on the schedule, who's facing Dallas in the next 1 to 3 weeks? Well, Las Vegas is one of those teams. So for that reason, I think that you can basically get Christian Watson in Trey Tucker at a fraction of the cost. 1-2% in deep leagues should do it, and you don't need to bid at all to get him in shallow leagues, and you can start him in the next 2 of the next 3 weeks and be very happy. And then it really falls off. Because you might say, well, there's another starting receiver out there, right? What about Kayshon Boutte? What about Darius Slayton? Podfather? What about these players? When are you going to talk about these guys? These guys are putting up fantasy points. These guys are starters or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, but the idea that Trey Tucker could easily be the wide receiver 1 in the second half of the season in Las Vegas with an incredible schedule, just because you haven't seen it lately doesn't mean that's not what he's going to deliver. We're looking ahead. We're not looking behind. Okay, we're not looking backwards. If you want to look backwards When you have a time machine, you can go back and you can start Boutte week in, week out, or the weeks when he has spike weeks. Fine. But I can't tell you when those weeks are going to be, because Kayshon Boutte has a higher touchdown rate, a 20% touchdown rate. Okay, 20%. It's higher than his target share, which is only 13.6%, which is outside the top 50. So anytime a guy's target share is trailing his TD rate, you need to ask the question, what the hell's going on here? What's going on here is just the luck of the draw. Whatever you're getting in terms of cards, whatever you're getting in terms of where the ball is landing on black versus red, it's always coming up cash for Kayshon Boutte until it's not. These 5-target games where the guy is putting up 15-plus fantasy points are not sustainable. What? So no, I'm not point chasing Kayshon Boutte. Let your league mates do that. I'm not putting up any more than 5% in a deep league on Kayshon Boutte. He doesn't deserve it, giving his advanced metrics. And then someone else will inevitably pick him up. And then you might ask, what about Chimere DK? Or Chimere DK? Well, it's official that he brings more to the table now. I would rather have him than Alec Aomenor. But this Titans team is completely incompetent. I'm super disappointed in Cam Ward. I'm super disappointed in the team. I think the offensive line was just not NFL caliber. And even if you have a rookie quarterback, even if you know it's going to be challenging, a team's going to be losing a lot of games, you can at least rely on NFL teams putting together an offensive line that is going to allow the offense to function at a base level. It is the most irresponsible thing that you can do as a front office is to essentially nuke your entire team, right? Yeah, you're detonating your entire roster and losing value across the board. You're losing a lot of trade value on this team, right? So players you might have been able to trade for more can't be traded now because they can't put up any numbers whatsoever, because it's not possible to move the ball down the field with this offensive line, a sub-NFL offensive line. It's weird. Like, you see teams like the Chargers will have an injury and then another injury and then they're on their third, fourth, fifth tackle, and they're still blocking at a more successful rate than the starting lineup up front for the Titans. It's just weird. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there. I didn't know how bad this offensive line could be, would be, could be. I just didn't. I mean, how did anybody? I mean, maybe point me in the right direction. Okay. Show me who knew how bad this offensive line was going to be in Tennessee. This is why I can't get out in front on DK. Okay. This guy is efficient. He's putting up big games. He's finding a way, right? He definitely has a higher ceiling than Aomenor. Okay. I get it. And I like it. But I'm not putting more than 5% down on this guy in deep leagues. You're going to need to put a couple percent down on him even in shallow leagues, because he's putting up points and he's being sorted to the top in like recent scoring. People are going to see him near the top. They're going to want to pick him up. Right? He's commanding a similar target share to Aomenor. He's just being more efficient with it. And we don't know when Calvin Ridley is going to be back. And there just isn't a lot here in this offense to get excited about. So I can't put him in the top 3. But I like him. I think he has a fun profile. And I mean, we look at him on playerprofiler.com. Look at this guy. He's best comparable to Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace was exciting. Okay. But this is not a great matchup for opposing wide receivers to play the Chargers this week. But yeah, DK runs a 4.34. He's got 70th percentile agility, 85th percentile burst. There's upside there for sure. It's just that he is a Titan. And in honor of Halloween, we were thinking about what could be the most terrifying thing that you would do in terms of a promotion for Fast Draft. It's like, give me something that's frightening. And then I was like, playing a Titan in the Super Slam. That's terrifying. And I was like, ooh, we should maybe do a promo around that. So the Super Slam contest on Fast Draft, you can just pick any 6 guys for the week, right? Pick your favorite 6 guys and put them into these couple booster spots. And so the guy with the most upside, like a Jonathan Taylor, probably going to put him in a top booster. And then someone else that has a ton of upside, put him in a top booster and ship it, right? That's how you play that game. It's super fun. You would rarely ever play a Titan in the Super Slam. That's just not something that people do. So I said, well, okay, then it's very scary to play a Titan in the Super Slam. So we will reward people. Anyone that plays a Titan this week, all week, this promotion lasts all week. It's not just a Fast Draft Friday promotion. All week, you play a Titan in the Super Slam, we will give you a $10 credit. So it's essentially a free team, right? And so whatever. So if you can find the guy, and maybe it's DK, maybe it's someone else that's going to give you the most upside, and probably not put him in a booster. I wouldn't do that, but you could do whatever you want, whatever you think is the best strategy. Do you? And see what happens. But that team, whatever team that you have to play a Titan, it's just, one team per user, one team this week per user, will get essentially your money back, a free credit for another team to draft in the Super Slam. If you use one Titan, it's just one Titan on one team this week. Again, we know it's terrifying, but it's Halloween. Let's go. Jaden Higgins is not terrifying. Jaden Higgins is really exciting. He was actually not as efficient as Jalen Noel, not as productive as the aforementioned Xavier Hutchinson. But Jaden Higgins is the one, other than Nico Collins on that team, that has the most upside. And he did earn 8 targets last week. He did score. So he was looked at in the red zone, and he was a big-time target earner. This is a very crowded wide receiver room in Houston, but there's upside here. If there are more injuries in front of him, or there's aggravated injuries in front of him, Jaden Higgins is going to be a wide receiver you're going to want to have on your team. And then the beauty is, because it is so crowded, you don't have to bid much. I don't think you have to bid at all in shallow leagues on him, and just maybe 2% in a deep league, you'll probably get him. Just because no one knows who's going to emerge as the main option behind Nico Collins. Could it be Xavier Hutchinson? Could it be Jalen Noel? I'm still putting my chips on Higgins, but it's not clear, and that's why this is the time when it's super ambiguous, is the time to pick up one of these guys and take a shot. Then I would go with a guy like Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton, much lower ceiling, but he's commanding a similar target share, and he is a starter, and the Giants keep losing pass catchers. I mean, Cam Scatterbo was a target earner, and Dan Bellinger picked up an injury, kind of a scary neck injury for Bellinger this past week. So Darius Slayton continues to be the beneficiary of the law of the conservation of targets. So in deep leagues, and if you're desperate to play someone, Darius Slayton is an option. I would rather have Darius Slayton than Kayshon Boutte, because he's in a much better situation and a much more consolidated target tree than Kayshon Boutte is. Then I would also just any given week take a shot on Alec Pierce. He's running a lot of routes. He's out there for most of the game. He's super volatile. He's one of these stretch Z players. And just take a shot. You want to stream? Alec Pierce is always one of the top streamers every week. Now, in deep leagues, It's time to get serious about Jalen Coker. He commanded more targets and he was more efficient in Week 8 than Xavier Legette. He's been working his way back after starting the season on the IR, and now he is the clear number 2 after this past week. It is official, something we always knew, but we just wanted the team to make it official with the snaps and the routes and the targets. Now we're seeing it, finally. Jalen Coker is the number 2 on a team that does have an offensive line that can block well enough to at least allow the quarterback to operate in garbage time. At least the Panthers can do that. Jalen Coker is explosive. You can tell by the 98th percentile burst score on Player Profiler, the 98th percentile catch radius. He's got size. I mean, he looks the part of just a volume Z receiver in the NFL. Not a stretch Z, a volume Z. And I like that. I like him a lot. I'm a big fan of the Holy Cross undrafted rookie who actually emerges in year 1. It's super cool. And now is the time in deep leagues to scoop him before he has a breakout week. Jack Bech, same thing. Jack Bech is, everything I said about Jalen Coker, I would say about Jack Bech. Jack Bech just has a little bit more draft capital. He's a rookie, but his snaps and his routes are skyrocketing. Before the bye, everyone forgot about him because of the bye, and now you have to go and remember the guys that you were thinking about stashing last week and don't forget to grab them. Ideally, after waivers run, players like Jack Bech are so forgotten about, you can let waivers run, then you can just jump in and just scoop them and add them to your bench for free. If you need to stream someone this week, now, on the plays of the week, it was brilliant because we had people complaining on Patreon, oh, Lamar Jackson's not actually playing, so saying Derrick Henry's a good play this week, we got to issue a correction here. No, I didn't bother issuing a correction because Derrick Henry was just fine. Thank you very much. Lamar Jackson is going to play. They are playing Miami, and so for that reason, Thursday Night Football, I hate doing this because on Thursday night, it's just so scary to stream a receiver, not knowing everyone's playing status. So you are giving up the intelligence of seeing the playing statuses before the 1 o'clock kickoff. But if you're so inclined, you may want to stream Rashad Bateman this week. Rashad Bateman, whenever Lamar is under center, Rashad Bateman can deliver a spike week. Malik Washington was another streamer we recommended last week. He got there and could easily get there again. So those are some 2 nice streamers that I have for this week at wide receiver. We even saw Roman Wilson be the leading receiver for the Steelers. So there's some desperation streaming options this week. Bateman, Washington, Wilson. Depends on the playing status of some of these 49ers wide receivers. Kendrick Bourne's always an option. Same in Houston. If Nico's out again, we got to run it back with Xavier Hutchinson if you need it. If you're desperate, of course, if you're desperate. And I do want to scoop and stash Jalen Noel because I don't know. I'm like, a guy you just want to pick up in general is Higgins. A guy you might want to think about streaming this week is Hutchinson, and a guy you want to stash in deep leagues, regardless, is Noel. So I'm interested in all 3 of these receivers, each with a little bit different context. Also, when looking at stashes, Trey Harris is only 1 injury away in Los Angeles to starting in 3 receiver sets for a team that can't run the ball, but is forced to throw in a prolific manner this year. He's also looked good when called upon. When he has been targeted this year, he has secured the ball in traffic, and he's looked the part of a professional NFL receiver. I like stashing Trey Harris because, again, if we're going to have multiple injuries happen in backfields, like what happened in Los Angeles, that could happen to the receiving core too. Just like in Tampa, what happened to the receiving core could happen to the running back room. At tight end, We talked about Colston Loveland all last week, and now everyone's talking about Colston Loveland. It's like, hey, guys, we already have Colston Loveland. We're good with Colston Loveland. He's number one. I would go up to like 8% in deep leagues to get Colston Loveland if you don't already have Colston Loveland. The next guy on the list is not Juwan Johnson, and I know he's very popular this week. Because Rashid Shaheed picked up an injury, even further consolidates the targets, but it is Tyler Shuck, so what does that mean? Is he better than Rattler? Probably not. It's not good, right? Either way, it's the Saints and it's not great. So the upside isn't great, but in terms of like, this guy will get targets. He will give me 12 fantasy points. I need 12 fantasy points. I'm starting Juwan Johnson. Please, by all means, do that. Stream Juwan Johnson this week. Please go do that. If you want to do that, please, by all means. I just like Theo Johnson. I'm a big Theo Johnson fan. I love athleticism at my tight end position, especially when it's like across the board, super athlete. And I also love that he wasn't that productive in college because this is an archetype that I like. And Bellinger took the big injury, right? The big neck injury to Bellinger. And for that reason, yeah, sure, you might pick up Darius Slayton because you just need someone at wide receiver. Fine. But I'm legitimately enthusiastic about Theo Johnson. There might be a scenario where he's actually even available in a shallow tight end premium league. I'd go like 20% on him in that case. But mostly you're talking about deep leagues where Theo Johnson just happens to be available for whatever reason, even though he's been productive. If he is there and you are in a league where there are choices, I would rather have Theo Johnson than Juwan Johnson. I just think Theo is the better Johnson. I think he's the bigger Johnson, and I think that he has more explosive ability. And I just think that you're more likely to be aroused by what you see in the box score by Theo Johnson than Juwan Johnson. I just prefer that Johnson. It's between two Johnsons. I get it. We're trying to choose between these two Johnsons because in a lot of leagues, smart people already picked up Colston Loveland. I'm going Theo Johnson for athleticism purposes and target conservation purposes. Those are my reasons. And watch Juwan Johnson just go completely ham because I said pick up Theo Johnson. A note when you're stashing tight ends that maybe you're not going to play this week. Isaiah Likely. He did pull even with Mark Andrews in terms of snaps, routes, targets. He finally is pulling even with Mark Andrews. And remember, Mark Andrews was humiliated in the playoffs last year. I was surprised he didn't retire after what happened. I mean, and so I'm impressed with his mental toughness and his grit. But Isaiah Likely is the future at that position. And now would be an interesting time if you have a deep roster spot and Likely is, for whatever reason, available because he just hasn't put up the numbers this year. He's an interesting stash as well. At quarterback, we're streaming Joe Flacco, I guess. We're down to that. I mean, I've done everything. I've had back bends and pretzels that I've been twisted into to not recommend Joe Flacco, but now we just have to because all of these other fringe quarterback options every week to stream flame out spectacularly. Most recently, Spencer Rattler. Oh my God, right? And in Superflex, a guy to stash, just keep in mind Kenny Pickett. We're going to see some Kenny Pickett this season, more than any of us really want to see, but that's just something to keep in mind for in all of our Superflex. He's available in a lot of Superflex leagues, and it's just we got to get real. Pickett has some mobility, and just a matter of time. Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.